Hello, and thanks for joining us. My name is Zachary Monroe. I'm the Director of Development and Community Relations here for Hospice of St. Lawrence Valley. Today I am joined with William Ecker, who's the Adult Program Coordinator of Potsdam Public Library, and Kate Favreau, Hospice of St. Lawrence Valley's Bereavement and Volunteer Program Coordinator. Thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you for having us.
So we're here to talk about the 4 things that matter most book discussion event. And so, William, could you tell us a little bit about why we're having a book discussion event?
I recently read a book called Being Mortal, and it talks about the importance of how we end our stories and as we get closer to the end of our lives, how sometimes that control can be out of our hands if you're in a hospital and versus using hospice. So the reason for it, yes. So what happens in the book discussion group is really to kind of talk about some of the more important aspects of our life that we don't address usually until we get to the end of our lives, right? So when we find ourselves, for lack of a better term, on our deathbeds, we start thinking about the things that have happened during the course of our lives and the people that we want to either make amends with, or the things that we may have regretted not having a chance at taking a shot at, etc. And so reaching out to Kate and talking to Kate, after having read a book that made me think a lot about this, I thought, why should people be waiting to that point in their life to be able to talk about these things? Now, in general, as someone who works at a library and someone who loves books and loves stories, and especially books and stories that kind of leave you thinking when you're done with them, you usually want to discuss things with those folks. And so, when I finished reading this book, the book that had gotten me talking to Kate was Being Mortal. After reading that, I was like, God, this is something that really could use some serious discussion, really have people talking about it. And so we had thought about doing something with hospice. There was some discussion before I was hired on at the library. Right. And so I was like, okay, well, why not now? And so I reached out to Kate and said, hey, listen, I read this book and Being Mortal, and she was quite familiar with it. This book that you guys have on your shelf here at the library. And I said, what if we started working together on doing programming? And so that led us to this discussion group, this book, and talking about having folks read this book. And then after reading it, I'm convinced that people are going to want to talk about it. And why not give you that forum to do so?
Yeah, absolutely. I think having an event like this allows people to have that individual experience of reading that book, coupled with the group experience of coming together and exploring not only your thoughts, but what other people thought while reading that same material. And it really just builds the collaborative spirit, and it empowers you as an individual to have conversations, but also empowers others to learn from you.
How did you come up with the idea for a book discussion event?
So I was hired at the library during the pandemic. And trying to come up with programming, during the pandemic while we were closed for renovations and things of that nature. I started doing a lot of stuff outside of the library, but I ended up going, and we have an organization platform we're using through Trello. And in there, it talked about works in progress and looking at different things for ideas. And in there was, it seemed like there was hopes of having a program started with hospice. And I think it was a book club, actually, a book club came to start. I had somewhere been thinking about doing a book club, but also maybe doing a discussion group, and what I didn't know what the avenues would have been. Mary Jones was the person that was mentioned in the Trello platform, and also our library board now president, Kathy Lowe, has also done some volunteering with hospice. She loves hospice and she loves the library. Yeah. So I reached out to both Kathy and Kate, and Kate and I talked about it. I says, should we talk to Mary? Do we talk to Mary? And Mary also talked about Kathy. Yeah. So, and we joke about how Kathy's enthusiasm for this, her last name couldn't be more appropriate. There's a lot of love in Kathy Love. Right, yeah. I love Kathy. Yeah. And so, while book club was one of the things that I thought would be a good idea, I thought this would be a great platform to, getting people together, reading this book, talking about the book, and I think during these discussions, you're going to find that people are going to talk about some of the other things that they find to be important, and maybe things that they want to see more of, and it could open up, I think, a relationship, this partnership between the library and hospice to make other offerings for other programs for the public, for not just our patrons, but for the community at large. Kate had some programs here that I was looking at prior to we are even talking, and talk about maybe holding things. And I don't know if you want to touch on some of those programs that we could possibly be doing through the library and partnerships.
Yeah, so hospice is trying to provide to the community as a whole an avenue to attend a group to navigate grief. There's a lot of grief in our communities, partly because of COVID, also because of just normal natural loss. And having a space like the library to be able to bring those people together, it's a beautiful facility, the renovations were amazing. Having that space, but also having those resources that people might seek out after having discussions about their grief and loss, right in one place, I think is going to be a really great way to partner and meet the needs of our community together.
You guys have a library here with a lot of fantastic books that address those things, and I think that we have, obviously we are a library, right? So like maybe we have all the resources that can help people navigate. And we talked about this earlier. It's when you think about hospice, it shouldn't necessarily be, you're thinking, oh well, this is a last resort. This is like, oh, quick, we need to find something. It's like, this is something that is just bigger than just like you're at the end of your life or your loved ones at the end of their lives, and this is an avenue. It's something that I've been a supporter of for some time, and I think that would be great to get that education out there, let people know what hospice can provide, outside of just end of life care.
So Kate, why this book, The 4 Things That Matter Most?
So through discussion with one of our hospice volunteers, who William also mentioned is the president of the board of directors for the Pottstown Public Library, Kathy, she had read this book previously. I also read it when I first started with hospice, and it really resonated with the both of us. She appreciates the fact that it allows people to have powerful conversations before the very end of their lives. And I think she was able to articulate that in a really good manner, and she knows the book inside and out. So she's going to actually be the group discussion leader for the event, which is perfect because she is very well versed in it. She knows the book cover to cover, if you will. So I think that her input was really valuable in choosing this specific book.
So could you maybe tell us a little bit about what the synopsis of the book is?
Yeah. So The 4 Things That Matter Most is a book about living, is what the author refers to it as. And he approaches it in this really easy to read manner. So it's not a textbook. It's a story per chapter talking about these 4 things that really matter. And it empowers the reader to see these 4 phrases as something that can leave you with a sense of completeness in all of your relationships. The 4 things that matter most are very easy things to say in theory, but they're very difficult to have meaningful conversations around. So he likes to focus on 4 phrases: please forgive me, I forgive you, thank you, and I love you. And I think one of the chapters in this book specifically talks about how you can have those conversations with people in a nonverbal manner. So that appeals to readers who maybe find those 4 phrases kind of difficult to say. And I think we all have trouble saying certain words of those kinds to people. But the book itself is a series of short stories that really embody the ability to have those conversations in various manners.
And that's why I think Kathy was talking about, we said, well, what do we want to call this group? We had a couple of ideas, and what resonated with her also is it's talking about things left unsaid. This is the opportunity to start now, not on your deathbed, at looking at the things that you want to express to the people that you care about, people that are play major roles in your life, and not get to the point where it might be too late and you've left these things, you leave this world and you've left things unsaid that maybe you wanted to share with the people that you care about, or maybe you have estranged family members who before it's too late, maybe you can kind of mend those fences. And so this really, I think, will help address a lot of that.
And that's probably something that this pandemic has really kind of, we've all come to realize, right? And as we come out of this post-pandemic era, we come into this post-pandemic era, this book sounds like it could be kind of a tool for people to use for guidance.
Well,
discover.
Yeah, the book and the group, because I think that the other thing that people are finding is they've missed each other, right? So this, and I think that we should make note of that as well, is that this gives people the opportunity. At the library, where I know we talk about so where they will meet, but it'll be virtual and in person.
Right.
But it's this will give people the opportunity to be together, to talk about, not just like to be together to talk, but to talk about something of real substance. This beats small talk about the head and shoulders for sure.
Yeah. So when is this event taking place? How can you sign up, and where can someone get a copy of the book?
So we are scheduled to host the discussion at the Potsdam Public Library on Monday, November 29th from 5:30 to 7. We are going to, as William mentioned, we're going to also have a Zoom component, so we will, send Zoom links via email if you feel more comfortable attending in that fashion. William can talk a little bit about masking requirements for the library.
Yeah, everybody's required to wear a mask. They can sign up at the circulation desk. We have a sign-up sheet there. There's a sign-up sheet at the Friends of the Potsdam Public Library bookstore downstairs from the library, which is across from the neighborhood center, in the same building as the library. And then there's a sign-up sheet at the check-in desk here at the hospice. The email for Kathy Love is there. And people will, and then of course, if they have any other questions, if they're unable to get to the library or to hospice or any of these other locations, they can contact me. And so my email address would be weckert@potsdamlibrary.org. And I'll say it a little slower, weckert@potsdamlibrary.org. And I can make sure that information, if they're interested in signing up, get that to Kathy. And if they want a copy of the book, I think we have our copies that we had, and we have all of your copies.
Yes.
So we have over half a dozen people that have already signed up for this to date that are reading the book.
Wonderful.
And so we still have some copies of the book left. They can get it out there, and we're happy to help folks get engaged in any way we can.
Wonderful. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having us. It's been great.
Thanks.